As promised in my previous video, this time I'm going to do something slightly more complicated. I have here a series of cylinders parented together. I go to my outliner and shift click on the plus sign. You can see how this is arranged in a hierarchy. Each one is connected to the one above. And they're all just named A0 through A9. There's 10 of them. And I'm going to use expressions to make this wiggle back and forth like a tail or a tentacle or something of that nature. So I'm going to begin by going to my attribute editor. Click my first tab right here so I can see my rotate. I'm going to right click on my rotate and create a new expression. Now specifically, I want my rotate Y. So I'm going to click on that. And here I can see AO.rotateY. Copy that, paste it in here. Set that to an equals, and I want this to swing back and forth using the sine wave. So I'll type in SIN, open parentheses, time, close parentheses, and semicolon. So now this will use the sine pattern as time progresses. And it'll take me from -1 to +1. But -1 to +1 in a rotation, not that much. As you can see, it's barely moving at all. So I'll begin by creating some variables to adjust this. And like last time, variables are always created with a $sign. And this is my amplitude equals, let's say, 30 for this. My rotation should be in degrees, so this will now be multiplied by 30 degrees times amp for amplitude. So now instead of going from -1 to +1, it'll go from -30 to +30. Get out of the way. All right, stop that. Next, I want a variable that can control the speed. Equals, so $sign speed equals, let's just say 2 for now. I can always adjust that later. And I'll just multiply my time by $sign speed. Now it should go faster. Twice as fast, in fact. There. When you're setting something up for animation, you want to be able to control when the animation starts, where in the cycle it starts. So I'm going to create a $sign start, and for now I'll just leave it at 0. And what I want is to grab the time right here. I'm going to put that in its own little parentheses and subtract $sign start from that. Now if I edit, because this is 0, nothing will happen. But if I change my start to say 10, hit edit again. Now at frame 0, it starts as if it was at frame 10. If I set this to -10, it'll start at frame 0 as if it was starting at frame, well, -10, 10 frames in the past. And I can adjust that to be whatever starting point I want for my animation now. I also want each of these segments to start at a slightly different point. I want each one of these segments to start at a different point in time so that I have, instead of just waving back and forth, I can get kind of a curly sine wave out of it. So I need them to have a slight offset. So I'll call it offset. I'll make that 0.1. And I'll just throw a negative offset right here. But I also want each one of these to be offset by a different amount from each other. And I don't need the very first one to have an offset. I'm just going to write this in here so I have a standardized formula that I can copy and paste into the rest of them. So I'm going to multiply this offset by 0. Edit, nothing happens. And finally, I want the amplitude to either weaken and fade to 0 or become more extreme as it goes down the line. So for that, I will create $sign fall off. I'll give that one a 0.12. And down here under amplitude, I'm going to put a parentheses minus fall off. But I want to make sure the fall off is never going to be greater than my original amplitude. So I'm going to multiply this by my amplitude. So the maximum fall off, this fall off is ever set to 1. Then it'll be amplitude minus itself. That'll be 0. But I also want this to increase as it goes from the beginning to the end. So I'm going to multiply the whole thing, or multiply this section by 0.0 to remind me that I want this to increase by 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9 as it goes down the length of the tail. Hit edit, and nothing changed at all here so far because, once again, it's multiplied by 0 because the first one doesn't have any fall off. I can take this, copy that, paste it into the next line, and because I named these 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., I can just go to the number right there, change that to 1, change this 0 to 1, and this 0.0 to 0.1. And you can see now this is slightly offset, so it's got a little bend right here. And I can continue that for the rest of them. So 2, 2.2, 3, 3.3. Let's get a little bit of a bend right there as it goes. I'll grab all of these, paste them all in. This will be 4, 4, 0.4, 0.5, 5, 5, 6, 6, 0.6, 0.7, 7, 7, and I only need 2 more of these for 8 and 9. So this will be 8, 8.8, 0.9, 9, and 9. Edit. You can see it curls. And by changing any one of these variables, I can change how this looks. If I want to make my offset larger, I can try 0.25. And you can see by increasing how much it offsets as it moves down the line, I can see more of the sine wave pattern. play. Move this so I can see a little easier. Look at that. If I increase my fall off, or heck, if I just take this up like 0.75, so it's huge fall off, you can see this straightens out as it goes. If I want, if I take this to a negative number, if I set this instead of 0.1 like it was at the beginning, if I make this negative 0.1, oops, negative 0.1, this will actually greater as it goes towards the end. And negative 0.25 will be even more extreme. Negative 0.75 should be ridiculous. Look at that. There's a real curl there now. So with this little formula right here and these variables, I can get whatever results I like from this. I can double the speed again. The problem with that is, as you increase the speed, these don't have enough time to really get wiggling. As it goes down, it already starts turning again before it gets anywhere, so I can stop that. I can increase my amplitude. Edit. Things are getting all kinds of interesting looks. I'll go back to a positive fall off. Perfectly honest. Yeah, I think these look better. Oops, so actually if I decrease my offset quite a bunch, yeah, get a much better wiggle that way. So by tweaking these, you can start getting all kinds of interesting looks for the tentacle with just these 4 variables right there to start just being the beginning of this. So once again, if I change that to different number, beginning starts differently. But the overall appearance remains exactly the same. I'm going to set this back to where it was. I liked it better. Yeah, like that. This looks a lazy tail wave. All right. I'm going to save this. In my next video, I'll talk about how to add custom controls so I can change these on the fly without having to go into my expression editor every time.